So one of the craziest things that I've learned these past few years is that the very best ideas, the most powerful lessons, they never seem like good ideas in the moment. They seem either ridiculous, threatening, or cruel. And the reason why they don't seem like good ideas, it's obvious in hindsight, but it's you have your worldview, your understanding, and there's lots of things that are outside and there are some things that are inside. And if this idea fits inside of your worldview, it's going to seem like a good idea, but it's not going to have the power to actually expand your mind, expand your thinking. If something exists outside of it, you just don't have the tools to see it as a good idea, to appreciate its logic and its sanity. So it seems like one of these three things. Now, when I was a Mormon missionary in Siberia, part of my job was to try and change people's minds. And so I'd watch in real time as their minds were changed and questions were asked and they were going deeper, and you could see their minds expand as they started to consider more things. And what always got me was that it's not necessarily that their minds would change really quickly, but it's what ideas their minds would grab hold of. And I'll be the first to admit, as a former Mormon, some of the stuff we were talking about was, you could definitely classify it as ridiculous to the average person. We were talking about a young man hundreds of years ago who claimed to have seen an angel, seen God, and then found buried golden plates in a hill somewhere. An angel showed him where it was, grabbed him out, decoded this ancient writing that was on these golden plates, and then voila, we have scriptures, and now this is the word of God. That's a pretty crazy story by anyone's standards. But that idea, amongst many other ideas, still held people's minds. And I think that on some level, we recognize that we don't know very much, and the best ideas are ones that our minds can't even quite comprehend yet. So it's a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing because when we understand that, then we're more receptive to the things that we don't necessarily understand, or we don't trust our first reaction to these things. So somebody that doesn't have that lesson would be the ultra-conservative type who rejects everything that doesn't fit into their worldview, right? And that's pretty stagnant. But on the opposite end, if you try to accept everything that looks ridiculous and unorthodox, well, then you end up kind of a chaotic puddle, and you can't really make much progress. So I think it's important to recognize what each of these three look like. So I'll go through them. So first is, it looks ridiculous, okay? That's the first one. Now, if you think about just people for a second, think about Harry Potter, Dumbledore, classic character. So this is the guy that's powerful, he's got unbelievable wisdom, and he is a little crazy. He seems that way. Another example would be Rafiki from The Lion King. Do you remember that time where he was in that big baobab tree and he was like singing and dancing, and he put some paint on the walls and he suddenly divined out of nowhere that Simba was alive? See, there's tons of them. In Avatar, there's King Bumi, a little crazy. There's plenty more, but that's the ridiculous side. Now, those are people, those are like archetypes. But let's talk about actual things. Right? So things that seemed crazy, and there's actually quite a few, especially in health. So a big one would be something like a 10-day silent retreat. That sounds pretty crazy, especially to people who are working average people. You go take 10 days off to not go to a beach, not relax, but to not say a word, completely cut off from all content, all technology. Even reading is not allowed, and you just sit there for 12 hours a day. Like who in their right mind wants to spend their precious 10 hours off of work doing that? Nobody, right? But there are plenty of super successful people that will swear by it. And I did it myself a couple years ago, and I'll tell you, it was life-changing. It was incredible. One of the best experiences I've ever had. Now, besides that, there are things that are a bit more conventional, like running or lifting weights. And it wasn't that long ago, even a few decades ago, where that was insane. In fact, people that were running around would be stopped by their neighbors and asked, like, what's going on? Are you okay? What are you running from? Who's chasing you? Or like, what are you late to? They just couldn't wrap their heads around running just to run or just for health. And the same thing with lifting weights. It's like, wait, so you lift the thing, but then you put it back where you found it, and then you do it again? Like, what's the purpose? Why don't you just go lift a box, or like do something constructive? Go work out on the docks. Like, it seems like it's totally useless, you know? But these things, they enter the mind of the community, looks crazy and does look crazy for a little while, and then it's gradually accepted. So that's ridiculous. I think we can see that one. So the other one is threatening. And I think this one's really interesting because it's tied to competence. I think it's closely tied to competence. I think a great example of this is AI. Now, it doesn't fit everything, but I think that AI for a lot of people is threatening. And I think the reason why it's so threatening, partially, is because it is so competent. It's so powerful. Not perfect, but it's pretty powerful. And the same goes for people. Sometimes, you hire somebody new, and if they just 10x what you expected of them, well, if you're the boss, that's great. But if you're the coworker, that's pretty threatening. And even though that person might have incredible wisdom to share with you, it's still quite threatening. And a lot of people will reject that. So that's threatening. Now, the last one is cruel. And I think the best example of cruel, good ideas, I think you just look out into nature as a starters. So I don't think there's anyone that would say that nature is evil. And yet we see some of the most horrific things in nature, from animals getting eaten alive to, all sorts of cruelty. A lot of violence in nature. And yet this is the way that life works and evolves. So an example with a human would be you fire somebody who's incompetent, super nice, but incompetent. And so you're going to seem cruel to everybody else if you fire this person, but you're doing it for the health of the business so that everything survives, so that everything can work. And if you don't do that, then you'll watch the standards and quality start to deteriorate within the company. So I always keep these three in mind. Whenever I hear something and I feel a reaction, that reaction might be totally justified. Maybe that idea is ridiculous or threatening, or maybe it is a bad idea because it is cruel, but sometimes it isn't. And it's worth just holding some space for that instead of trusting that initial gut instinct.